the core of everything that gets in people's way and keeps them from getting what they want in life is really comes down to a big assumption. If you've been here for any amount of time, you know I love you. I know you've heard me beat my big assumption drum for a very long time, but truly, 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 everything that you want in this life is oftentimes just on the other side of a big assumption. So what is a big assumption? A big assumption is something that you assume to be true about yourself or the way the world works. And that if this thing happens, if this worst case scenario happens, then bad things will happen to you. And so it's a self-protective mechanism that is built into our unconscious brain. We do not know it's there. And it's built into our brain to keep us safe. And that's really a beautiful thing until it starts to work against us and keeps us playing small. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm Alecia St. Germain, entrepreneur and coach. Along with my friend and wellness advocate, Jonathan Duggar, we're diving into what it means to embody radical self-acceptance while still evolving to lead with compassion and kindness. We're sharing our own experiences and expertise as we unpack imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and all the other things that lead to burnout and keep you from experiencing pure joy, business growth, and maximum impact. This is a safe and supportive space to explore what it means to be a human creating wealth and building a business. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. I have something so exciting to share with you today, and I just am busting at the seams. If you are someone who has felt like you should be further along by now, or you're frustrated because you know what you should be doing, but you don't do it, or something else always comes up and then you never get to it, or as soon as you feel like I'm going to close this chapter, this thing is going to be over, and now I'm going to have some open space to work on what I've been wanting to work on, and then something else comes up, today's episode is absolutely going to be for you. My name is Alecia St. Germain. If you don't know me, I'm the host of the Conscious Edge podcast and founder of the Conscious Edge, where I help women entrepreneurs get to the heart of whatever it is that is causing them to not take action on the things they most want to achieve in life, the goals and dreams that they have for their life. And we really work on the mindset pieces to make sure that you're enjoying the journey and the process of building your business, that you're playing to the level that you want to be playing at, and that you're doing it with purpose and it aligns with money. So all of those things come together. We take a very holistic approach to this journey, and keeping in mind that you're a whole human. You have a business, you may have family and friends, and you want to live a very rich and full life. And so we work very hard to keep all of that in play and make sure that we're attending to all the parts of your life and that you have a joyful journey. If you are brand new here, I want to say welcome to you. I'm so happy that you have found us. We do these episodes every single week. We release these episodes. So make sure that you tap that follow button so that you get notified of new episodes. And if you enjoy today's episode, please take a moment and leave a review, because it really helps us bring more compassionate leaders, more people to the table. From time to time, I have with me typically a co-host. You may hear that on previous episodes, Jonathan Duggar. He's our resident wellness advocate. And he does come in from time to time to be with us and talk about certain things. But today I am flying solo. And at different times, I have guests that will come on as well. So you'll be getting a variety of voices on this podcast. So as we're digging into today's episode, this has been a really interesting journey coming to this point in what I'm going to tell you about today. I was sitting recently in a mastermind with some other women locally in my area where we get together once a month and we talk about our businesses and what we're working on and work through problems together, both on the personal side and the business side. And I was telling them that I have come to a point in my coaching, my skills, that I can do things much quicker than I used to be able to do them. And we were talking about really the core of all of the things that keep women from taking action in their business, or really anybody. I do have some male clients as well, but typically a majority of the people that I work with are women. And so I was talking about the core of everything that gets in people's way and keeps them from getting what they want in life is really comes down to a big assumption. If you've been here for any amount of time, you know I love you. I know you've heard me beat my big assumption drum for a very long time, but truly, 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 everything that you want in this life is oftentimes just on the other side of a big assumption. So what is a big assumption? A big assumption is something that you assume to be true about yourself or the way the world works. And that if this thing happens, if this worst case scenario happens, then bad things will happen to you. And so it's a self-protective mechanism that is built into our unconscious brain. We do not know it's there. And it's built into our brain to keep us safe. And that's really a beautiful thing until it starts to work against us and keeps us playing small. So I offer workshops from time to time. We do live workshops where you're able to go through and map out your big assumption and really find out, based on maybe a goal, a behavior change, something you're trying to change in your life to do better at. And why is that so hard? And I've talked in previous episodes about what the big assumption is, how it all works. I still do those workshops. And in fact, I find that running those workshops very early on, bringing in a group of people into my program, running that workshop along with a couple of other workshop type things that I do really jumpstarts people into their transformation, into achieving what they want. And I find that they move through very quickly because we can do almost 3 months worth of work in the program in basically 2 workshop days. We can get such traction. But backing up a little bit, even before that point, one of the things that I often do is I go into other people's communities where there's a coach or a leader within that community that is teaching people typically a strategy of some sort for their business, how to get their first clients, how to manage their time better, how to sell better, how to market, all the tactical things that people need in order to make money in their business, how to find real estate deals, all the tactical things. And so I partner with these communities and I will come in and I will do mindset coaching. And oftentimes what I'm doing is I'm really getting down to what is the big assumption that people are making that is keeping them from taking action on what the coach or the mentor is telling them to do. And so I have gotten to a point in my skill level where I can do this pretty quickly. And so I was describing this to my mastermind gals, and they were like, you know what you should do? It would be so awesome because one of the things for me in the selling process, right? So we all have businesses. We all know we have to sell things or offer things. I am doing this podcast to add value and in hopes that when you hear me, of course, I might be the right coach for you. And you might want to come talk to me and see if that is something that you'd like to do. So we're all part of this process, right? But for me, the selling process, and if you listened a couple episodes ago when Jonathan and I talked about selling and how not to make it sleazy, I really like for my process to be part of relationship building. And when someone gets on the phone with me or engages in any kind of my content, I want you to come away better, or at least the same, but better than when I found you. So you come away with some kind of shift, some kind of aha, some kind of transformation, something that makes your day run smoother, something that makes a change for you. And knowing that you're better for it, whether we choose to engage and work together as a coachee relationship or not. And so I was expressing to them that I haven't really done a lot of sales calls really that, someone would be coming on specifically not knowing anything about me. Typically, people would see a webinar or they've seen me speak. They go to my webpage, they apply to be part of the program. And by the time someone is applying to be part of the program, they pretty much just have a couple questions that they need answered, a little bit of fear that needs to be quelched, and they just need to talk to me for a very short period of time. And then they're like, yes, I'm in. And so I have realized, though, that there is a whole lot of people out there who need support, who are interested in coaching, but the idea of filling out an application is a little bit too intense. In fact, it raises the fear level a little bit for people. And so I wanted to make this work more accessible to you, make this exploration and information more accessible to you, and lower the fear of like, oh, I'm going to get sold, or, oh, I have to buy if I fill out an application. And so I was telling them, yeah, and like, I don't want people to just get on a call with me and it's just a sales call. I want people to walk away from this call, from this time that they have spent with me, and whether they choose to work with me or not, they feel like they got some clarity, some value, something from it. And so we started talking about how everything you want is on the other side of this big assumption. And I was like, I've gotten really good to a point where I can usually help someone very, very quickly. One of my talents and gifts, and part of my sole purpose, is really, I have a talent for being able to get to the heart of something very quickly in a very loving hard truths, we call them, loving hard truth kind of a way. And it's just something that I have in me. I ask the right questions. I ask really good questions that make people think. I'm very good at seeing patterns. I'm listening to the language that someone's using. And so oftentimes, even without going through a workshop, I can identify some version of people's big assumption. It might not be the perfect big assumption or exactly what it is, but it is close enough that people are like, oh my gosh, that feels real. I'm having like a heart reaction to that. This is very insightful. This is helpful. And then the next question is like, okay, so what do I do with this now that I know that? And so I came up with this idea that for people who are seeking coaching, but you're not sure if you are ready or not, but you've been listening to me for a while, maybe you know that coaching would really support you. You may have had coaches before. You may not had coaches before. I have both kinds of people come to work with me, people who have had lots of coaches. And I can tell you hands down, many people say to me, like, this coaching is different. This is very next level. This is very deep coaching that we do, and it's very transformative. So it's not surface level coaching. This is really transformative stuff. And so if you are someone who's worked with someone before and you're curious, or you are someone who's never worked with someone before, I promise you a safe space to explore it with no pressure. I came up with this idea to do a journey mapping call. I talk a lot about the journey and how when you do this kind of work, it really transforms the way that you walk through your journey to reaching your goals, to reaching your destination. And so often there's so much focus on the destination that as you're on the journey, you're exhausted. I have likened it to, and I did a whole episode on this, I'll link it here, but I've likened it to like sitting on a plane in the back row middle seat, surrounded by all your inner critics next to the bathroom kind of journey versus sitting up in first class kind of journey. And you're there with your pals. And when have so much self-awareness around your inner critics and what is real and what is not real, and the places where you are unconsciously keeping yourself safe, when you have that self-awareness, you can choose so much more powerfully what your experience is going to be like on this journey. And so I came up with this idea for a journey mapping call. I think that's what we're going to call it, because I do talk about journeys and because I do talk about maps. I talk a lot about mapping out your mind, mapping your behaviors, linking those to your worries, and then linking those worries to thoughts, which are your big assumptions. That this journey mapping call seemed like the right thing to call it. And so what you can do is you can request to book a journey mapping call with me. Now, I am going to need some basic information from you because it just helps me be a little more prepared for the call. And it makes it so that we are getting the most out of the time that we're spending together. So I'm prepared and we're not spending time covering some just basic information. So I'll request a little bit of basic information from you. And I really wanted to take you through today what this call would be like so that you have clarity going into it. And it, again, makes you not afraid of the process, makes you not afraid of the conversation, because getting on a call with someone to engage or choose to maybe think about getting some coaching can feel very stressful for people. And I don't want to do that. I want to lower that level of stress for you and really make your decision-making process easy and make it so that you have all the information you need to make a good decision for yourself that is going to change the rest of your life in the course of your life. So I get some basic information from you. When we meet, the first thing that I always like to do is find out a little bit about just who you are, where you are in the world. Do you have a family? Just a moment of who you are. And then I very quickly like to get into what you're trying to create. So asking you what your vision is. And really, a lot of times when I ask people what's their vision or what is it they're here to achieve, or why are they getting on the phone with me? What is it that they want? People will oftentimes go to the tactical, tangible things only. Like I want to expand my real estate portfolio by 10 new doors this year, or they give me very tactical. I want to make $100,000 this year, or I want to make $500,000 this year, whatever it is. They give me this very tangible, tactical thing, which is great. And what I'm really interested in is, what do you want your life to feel like? How do you want to spend your time? Who do you want to be in your life? What do you want those relationships to look like? How do you want to feel? How are you taking care of yourself? I really want the whole picture from you of what it is that you're trying to create, because when you live your life connected like that, it is so inspiring. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to ask you. Now, after we talk a little bit about your vision and what you want, then we're going to start to get to the heart of what is it that's in the way of you creating that. And that's where your big assumption comes in. So I will go through and typically take you through some thought exercises, or I'll ask you some questions, and we'll kind of figure out what is really getting in the way or stopping you from just going after and achieving that. And for everybody, there is something. So what I want you to really understand is that while you might be looking at someone else who has what you want and the journey looked so easy for them and yours feels really hard, they had their own sticking point. Some people, the sticking point is just in getting started. It's like you have all the knowledge, you know what you're supposed to do, and you just can't quite get yourself off of the dock to take the jump or the leap into the water. And so for them, that's where your sticking point. For someone else, they actually have some challenges with stamina. So they've been at it for a long time and then they're getting frustrated and it's taking too long and they feel like they're not going to make it. And so they start to pivot a lot and they start to zigzag and they get a little lost in what they're doing. And so my goal is then to bring you back to center, bring the end goal back into focus and figure out what is it that you're making up about this journey that is causing you to zigzag like you are. So everybody has, or sometimes people just stop and tread water. Like, oh, I just got to hold here because maybe they tried to push farther and they didn't develop that capacity for success. And they tried to push a little farther and they got scared and they thought about turning around and going back. But instead, they just kind of stayed and treaded water and they're not sure what to do. And so we might look at what are you assuming to be true that is causing you to just stay still and tread water. So everybody, point being, everybody has these moments where a big assumption will come into play and it will get you stuck. And the thing about the big assumption is most people don't know they have this big assumption. People will think that their problem is one thing. They'll think it's a strategy problem. They'll think it's a time problem. They'll think it's a lack of funds or resources problem. And when in fact, it's this unconscious belief that if I do something, I will be unsafe. And so bringing that out into the open itself brings so much awareness. So as we go through this call and I talk to you, I'm going to be looking for what big assumptions are you making? What big assumption could you be making that is making it harder for you to hit that life or to create that life and that business in the way that you imagine it to be? It's the thing that gets in the way of the dreams. It's the thing that stalls us out. So I am going to go through and we're going to look at, okay, what's the big assumption that you're making? And then from there, we can talk about a plan for you. So the journey mapping call. So a plan for you or a journey map of what would it look like if you were to let go of this big assumption? And how can you go about doing that? In that process of that call, I promise you, you will come out of it with more clarity than you had coming into it. And if we decide mutually that it would make sense for you to consider working with me in a coaching capacity at that point, I will then share with you what it looks like to work with me in my coaching. So I wanted to take this time really to map out for you what this journey mapping call would look like. And I also want to invite you at this point that if you've been looking for a coach, or even if you haven't been looking for a coach and you never actually really thought of the fact that a coach could help you get to your destination faster and more comfortably than you have been, or at least make you comfortable. I should say, at least help you get comfortable with the uncomfortableness of building your business. I want to invite you to request to have this journey mapping call with me. I have no expectation on this call that you will purchase. I do not like to be pressured or feel manipulated into buying things when I am on the receiving end of this. So I can promise you that if you feel any sorts of discomfort in having a conversation about working with me or not, again, that is probably a big assumption that is coming up for you. And I am certainly happy to help you work through that or acknowledge it or just see it in that light that it is. I believe everyone has the sovereignty to decide for themselves, yes, I want to work with this person, or no, I don't. And there is nothing that I should be doing to manipulate or to force or make someone feel guilty for not working with me. I have been in those shoes and I have felt those things in my own journey, and I didn't like it. And so I really have learned through my own work to be able to be really upfront with people when I am sitting in those seats and getting the information I need, and then just saying, you know what, this isn't something that I'm interested in spending my money on. It's not a priority for me. It's not what I want. I realize maybe you're not the right fit. And being able to really give people that feedback without making how they might feel about me my problem. And it has been such a freeing place for me to get to. And so I want to empower you through this process as well. And we talked about this again a little bit in that sales call, that sleazy, I think it was something about sleazy sales, a couple weeks ago. And it was really to say to you, like, you get to have these conversations where you explore and get more information and get the value of knowing what your big assumptions might be and how you could move forward and move through them so that you're not stuck, so that you're not frustrated, so that you are going faster and creating the results that you want in your life, and not feel bad about looking for that information. So I always want to make that such a safe place for people. I'm not saying that this is everyone, because there are also people who are like, yep, I totally get it. I know what this process is like. I'm really curious. I want to talk to you. This sounds fascinating. I'd love to know what my big assumption is, and I'd love your help to figure it out. But I just really want to make sure I'm addressing everyone in the gamut, because I just see it's very strange having this training, because you almost see people in big assumptions. Like, I think about how The Matrix is. I'm dating myself, but like in the movie The Matrix, there comes this point where the main character, I can't even remember his name, but I know it's Keanu Reeves, right? He starts to see the Matrix, and he sees everything as a series of ones and zeros, and you like see it going across the screen. And sometimes I really do feel like I have an unfair advantage, because I see the world in big assumptions, and I see the way people react. And I was like, oh, that's a big assumption they're making. Or I see the behavior. And it's such a gift to be able to see and understand big assumptions like this, because it creates so much compassion for people. It has helped me to be able to see people from a place of they are just self-protecting. Even the worst behaviors, it all comes down to survival and self-protection. And that is ultimately the crux of the big assumption. That is why the big assumptions that we have exist, and everybody has them. And even after you work through one set of big assumptions, you create a new set of big assumptions. And so as you go to the next level and you play a bigger game, you've got a whole new set maybe of big assumptions that you're working with. And I'll talk about that in a future episode, because I recently came up against my own new big assumption. It's like my next level. And so I'll talk about that in a future episode. But I need to get myself to a point where I've actually worked through it a little bit more. And so I still have some emotional charge around it. I'm still not totally clear what it all means. And so just like I walk my clients through the process of uncovering their big assumptions and then creating new beliefs for their brain, essentially, I practice what I preach. I do the same process. So I'm really excited to be able to come back to you soon and be able to tell you, like, okay, here's what I learned about next level big assumptions, and here's how I worked through it. And it's the same process. That's the really beautiful thing. What I love about doing in my coaching is a lot of times people do tend to stay. They come for a year. They tend to stay for multiple years, but it isn't because they need to. It's because they like to be in the community. They like the connection. They like the ability to be able to talk about things that don't get talked about out in the rest of the world. So they may have friends that are out in the world that are not entrepreneurs or business owners, and they would never talk about the things that we talk about inside of the Exponential Entrepreneur, inside the program. They would never talk about those things with their friends. And so it really gives them this safe space to explore a lot of things that they normally don't have people who understand them or people who understand what they're going through. So that's one of the reasons they stay for multiple years. And also because they feel like they've made significant progress and there's still so much more that they want to work on, but they are learning a process for coaching themselves. They are learning how to, in the moment, be out in the world and be like, hang on, I'm making a big assumption. Where's that coming from? What does that mean? How do I move forward and test it out and see if it's really true or not and be different in my life so that I can get to that goal that I want? So they really are learning an entire coaching methodology that they can use on themselves once they have the tools. And that's the most amazing thing I think about the coaching, is really teaching people to be leaders of their own lives, teaching people to lead themselves and to coach themselves through things. They're always going to do better in community and with other people. And you also are empowered to think for yourself and really look within and have a level of self-awareness that puts you in total control. You're totally in the driver's seat at that point, which is so incredible. So, long way to say, I am working through my own next level stuff with the same strategies that I am using with clients that I work with as well. So I want to invite you to request that call. If you would like to schedule that journey mapping call with me, what you will do is you will go to consciousedge.com/schedule. And I will ask you a few questions. You will pick a time that works for you. And then we will meet and we will map out your journey. You'll have your journey mapping call and figure out what is the big assumption that you're making, that if you were to overturn it, if you were to think something differently, would really help you accelerate your results. So with all of that being said, I'm sending you so much love. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.